There we go. So our first speaker today is Amber Willenborg from the University of Louisville, and her presentation is called Be Mine, Facilitating Instructional Relationships Through Syllabus Mining. So the floor is yours, Amber.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure that I can actually see the chat in my multitude of screens up here. All right. So can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. All right. So hi, everyone. As Ashley said, I'm Amber Willenborg. I coordinate the instruction program at the University of Louisville. And today I'm going to be presenting on a tool that I have been using for the past couple of years in our instruction program. It's Baylor University's Syllabi Information Literacy Miner. You'll realize that my title says like syllabus mining. The tool is called Syllabi Miner. I know one is singular and one is plural. I'm just going to be using them interchangeably today because I can't keep track of it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our impetus for implementing the Syllabi Miner at our library and how we have used it for helping liaisons find instructional opportunities. The largest part of the presentation today will be a demo of the tool, so I can really get in and show you how it works, give you some insights, and also talk a little bit about how we got access to our university syllabi and some successes and challenges that we've had with the tool. So with that, jump right in. I'm not going to belabor the numbers because I know we've all been talking about pandemic declines in instruction for years now. But just to say, like all libraries, we have seen a drop in our number of instruction sessions since the pandemic. So pre-2020, we were averaging about 150 classes a semester. Since the pandemic, we're right around 100 a semester for instruction sessions. So definitely declines are there, but I would also just like to point out that these numbers don't really tell the whole story. So while I definitely think that the pandemic caused us to lose some instructional relationships, we as a program have also made some concerted efforts recently to strategize within the instruction program and to make some choices about in-person instruction versus things that could be tutorials or things that would make more sense for programs to not have in-person instruction. So in 2019, we moved English 101 instruction online to an asynchronous tutorial that instructors use in their courses. We made that choice because we teach the next step, English 102, in person. That class has a research assignment, so English 101 is more of an introduction. We decided to move that online. When the pandemic hit, we were also in the process of moving Communication 111 instruction online. That was another course where it was not research intensive, but the program, wanted them to have a library introduction. So we made the choice that it made sense to move them online as well. So those were two classes that we were teaching heavily in person before the pandemic that, right before and during the pandemic, we made a concerted choice to move those online. We also had set ourselves up really well, I think, pre-pandemic to go online. We have a research DIY website as well as a productive researcher website that contain videos and instructions for doing lots of research tasks. So a lot of instructors turned to those during the pandemic. And then we also created a lot of custom tutorials throughout the pandemic that some instructors just chose to stick with and didn't move back to in-person instruction. So I wanted to kind of give that context and that background to say that, like, yeah, we have some concerns about the numbers and we're like, we should try to get those up a little bit. But the actual goals of our instruction program kind of right now and after the pandemic are not just increasing number of classes. We really want to create more consistent and predictable instruction relationships. So kind of more akin to what we were seeing before the pandemic, where our librarians typically knew, like, every semester I teach for this class and every semester I teach for these instructors. But the other side of that, we also wanted to make sure that we weren't just being stagnant and we're not just teaching for those classes and just teaching for those professors, and that we are reaching courses and we're reaching students where it makes sense. And sometimes with a school as big as ours, faculty really don't know what the library does, what we offer, even though I promise you we do a lot of outreach. We just have people who are teaching, research intensive courses who don't realize that the library is here, or the librarians don't realize that those courses, are even happening. So those are kind of the things we were thinking about, trying to be really conscientious of reaching out to classes where it made sense, and developing instructional relationships, and to keep that work going and not just get stagnant. So I'll just ask you for a little, interactive bit here. How do you proactively seek out new instructional relationships? Like, how do you keep from just being stagnant and, okay, I have my relationships, these are who I teach for, I don't mess with anyone else. So what kinds of strategies do you currently use? You can unmute, or you can just type in the chat.
I like to attend the new faculty orientation every fall and introduce myself to everyone.
Definitely. Yeah. Try to do that as well. That's great. So Jen said in the chat, reaching out during new faculty orientation and grad student meetings. Yeah, I think that's a big one. We try to do a lot of that. Our liaisons always try to attend those. Heather in the chat, attending the things that go on in our faculty teaching and learning center. That's great. Inserting the library into conversations. So getting in there where conversations are happening. Adjunct faculty orientation and program reviews.
I've actually started doing kind of what you're probably going to be talking about, is
Yeah.
actually look at syllabi and see what courses actually have a research component. So like,
Yeah.
we have, I don't know about you, but we have a ton of like bio labs and chem labs. Like,
Yeah,
I don't need to look at the syllabi to know that you need library instruction in those classes.
definitely. Yeah, looking at syllabi, really helpful, and definitely what we're going to be talking about today. So that's a nice segue. We'll move on. Heather is then also presenting things in the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning. Yeah, that's great. We have a pretty good relationship with our Teaching and Learning Center as well, which is very helpful. So, we're in search of these consistent and predictable instruction relationships. So in 2021, librarians from Baylor University presented at the LOEX conference, which is a large national instruction conference that I'm sure many of us have been to, on their syllabi information literacy minor that they created. And my department head and I saw that presentation and decided that we wanted to try out this tool at our institution for our instruction program. So like I said, I'm going to do a full-on demo of the minor in just a little bit, but I wanted to kind of describe it and talk about it first before we jump in. So what it is a Jupyter notebook, which if you're like not techie like me, I didn't know what that meant. But essentially it is just a link you go to that allows you to create and share open source software. So the Baylor University librarians created this open source software. There's a link to it in this Jupyter notebook, and that's how you use it. So don't worry about any of that. If it seems confusing and techie, it's really easy you just go to a link, I promise. And what you do when you go to that link is just upload syllabi files there. So it'll have you upload the files for the syllabi that you're looking at, and then it scans them for information literacy components. So words like research, identify, examine, within proximity to other words like library, paper, source. Again, you'll see all of that once we jump into the product. But it's scanning for preset words that are in the notebook. Now you can edit them. So you can say like, I don't care about the word identify. I want to add the word like book. You can play around with the words it's scanning for. So it's really great. You can make it your own. After you've uploaded your syllabi and had them mined for the words that you want them to pull, the output is going to be an Excel spreadsheet that has each document listed, and it gives you the little chunk of text that it pulled that it thinks is relevant to information literacy. So you can see how something like this, being able to put in hundreds of syllabi and have an output that is just giving you like the chunks of text that are related to information literacy, really helpful, really quick and easy way to identify courses where research is happening, where information literacy instruction could be valuable. So like I said, I'm going to walk through all of that in the demo and show you how it works. Just wanted to give you a little overview of it first. And I want to take a minute to just talk about accessing syllabi. So we're about to get into the demo of the syllabus minor, but I want to talk about the thing that people are probably thinking, how do I get access to all the syllabi at my university, right? So this was, I'd say, the trickiest part of the whole process for me. The syllabus mining tool, it's free, it's open source, it's super simple to use, even for someone like me who's not super techie. but your institution's syllabi might not be as easily accessible. So I will give you what I know about the situation. So I believe some public universities have syllabi repositories that you can just access. Like some universities, if you just Google blah, blah university syllabi, you can just publicly access all of the syllabi for that university. It's not the case everywhere, and it's not the case at U of L where I work. And I will also say that there is some debate around whether syllabi are public record, public universities, or if they're intellectual property, if they're, the intellectual property of the faculty who create them. So there's some like weirdness around that with how people feel about their syllabi being accessed. So at the University of Louisville, like I said, we don't have a fully open syllabi repository. One workaround to that is that instructors are required to add their syllabus to our learning management system, to Blackboard, in a way that anyone with university login credentials can access. But of course, that's hit or miss. I could log into 10 classes, 5 of them I might be able to access their syllabi, the other 5, who knows if they're going to be there or not. So it's just hit or miss. So what I ended up doing personally was reaching out to our Office of Academic Planning and Accountability and explain to them, I want access to the syllabi because we want to do some targeted outreach to courses with research components. And their suggestion right away was to go through Blackboard. They said, oh, you can access all of that in Blackboard. And I just, explained to them that's not going to work. Even if every syllabus was available like it should be in Blackboard, I would have to log in individually to hundreds, thousands of classes and grab syllabi individually to download. So that just didn't make sense for what we were trying to do. And I explained that to them and was actually given access to our university's database of syllabi. It's called OnBase. Our university collects all syllabi every semester for the accreditors. They have to do that. And so they are all in one place. I can log in and I can put in a query for like all the psychology syllabi for fall 2022 and download all those documents. So it's really great. It's easy to use. I'm very lucky that I got access to that. But they did warn me in giving me access not to tell faculty that I have mined their syllabi. They were like, they're going to be weird about that. They don't want like just anybody looking at their syllabi, even for instructional purposes. So just like be vague when you reach out to people about it. Don't say the word syllabus mining. So I was like, okay, great. So I wanted to mention all of this because, again, this was really the trickiest part and the part that took the most time for me, figuring out how to actually access my institution's syllabi. So, on your end, if you decide you want to use this tool, you're going to have to find out, are the syllabi at my university publicly accessible? Is there some kind of database that I can log into, and how do I get access to that? Who's the person to reach out to? And if none of that exists, what is the workaround? I could do Blackboard and log in individually and grab some syllabi for courses that looked relevant, even though it was really annoying. So that would have been my workaround. So just some things to think about when considering if you want to go through this process. So with that, if there are no questions, I'm not seeing anything in the chat, but I'm happy to answer anything that's come up so far. I'm going to jump into the demo. There is a chat from Esther. Course competencies are listed on the course descriptions for KCTCS curriculum committees, which are available on the Provost site. These competencies often have infolit aspects and controlled and predictable vocabulary. Oh, that's really helpful and great. Yeah. That's awesome. I'm sure a lot of people are dealing with this. I find like with our university being so huge, it's just so hard to have everything in one place. Like you can go and look at, the catalog, you can look at the psychology website and look at their competencies for their programs. I just find everything is so all over the place and kind of difficult to manage, but that's great that you all have that. All right, so we're going to jump in now to demoing this tool. I'm going to blow it up just a little bit so that everyone can see. So this right here is the Syllabi Information Literacy Minor. I'm going to put the link in the chat just so it is there. I'm sure someone will be happy to also add that to the notes. If you Google Baylor University Syllabi Minor, it also comes right up. So it's really easy to find, but there's the link for it. So this is the tool, and it can look a little scary at first, especially if you're not like a huge tech person, but I'm going to explain everything. So this first little bit of information here is just some purpose statements, instructions for using it. It's really simple. And then comments or questions, it has Amy James's contact information. If you start using this and you have questions, I've reached out to Amy before and she's very quick to respond and very helpful. They love when people use their tool and they're happy to answer questions. So then we will scroll down and there are 2 code blocks. You can see the first code block here. And then a little bit further down, we've got a second code block. So I'm going to talk about what these are. The first code block is where we're going to put in all of the information for what we want the syllabi miner to find for us. So the first thing here, number 1, is our syllabi source. It defaults to enter URL to a zip archive, and you can change that to upload syllabi. I always just upload syllabi because I've downloaded them from our system, and also because I don't know what the URL to a zip archive means. If you do, you can feel free to use that option. A little bit further down are where you can specify the terms that you want the miner to pull. So you can see here, we want these verbs to be found, evaluate, research, identify, and so on, along with fragments of those verbs, just in case it's like a different version, like evaluation. And then those verbs have to be in close proximity to these noun fragments. So it's not just any time the word evaluate is used, it's anytime the word evaluate is used within context of words like library, collection, data, project, paper, anything like that. So all of these can be edited. I typically will just start out with how it is. I say they know what they're doing. I'm just going to leave it. But if you use this and you want to edit these words, if you want to add words, take away words, you can do that as well. A little bit further down here in 5, 6, and 7 are some other things that you can play around with. I don't mess with 5 here. This just in your output, it will categorize everything as library basics, research basics, or more in-depth research in the disciplines. I don't do anything with that information, so I just leave it alone. But if that's something that you want to look at, how things are categorized, you can mess with those terms as well. You can identify some additional terms that don't have to be in context with other words. So if you wanted to like add the word, citation here, I really want, anytime they're talking about citation, I want to know that. You can add that as an additional term. And then the slider is just your proximity that you want the words to be to each other. And I don't mess with that. So you can see I don't mess with a lot, but you can really make it your own. You can edit a lot of these terms to really find what you're looking for in the syllabi. So once you have that set up in the way that you want it, what you'll do is just run this first code block. So you'll hit the run button over here. It's going to tell you somebody else authored this notebook, and that's fine. You can say run anyway. And then it will take just it's already done. I was going to say it will take just a couple of minutes, but this time it went fast, and it will say it is complete, and you can run the code block below. So we'll go down here to the second code block and hit run. And that's when we're going to choose our syllabi to add. So I'm going to choose my files here. And I just have 8 biology syllabi that I'm going to use for this. Normally, I will use way more than this, like 50, 100 or more syllabi, because again, we're a large university with a lot of, if I'm doing all the psychology syllabi, that's going to be like 200 syllabi. In this case, I wanted it to go fast because it's a presentation. So I just did 8 because it will take a few minutes if you're doing large numbers. But we've already got our output. It says you are at the bottom. And you can see here that we have an Excel spreadsheet that it downloaded with all of our great information that we mined. So we'll go ahead and open that up. And I will blow this up so that we can actually see it. So this will be the output of the miner. I'm going to open up all these so we can see them a little clearer. So first you've got your term that it pulled. So it says, this one had the term gather, this one had the term evaluate. You're going to see what file it came from. So this Biology 10402 course. And then you're going to get the context for that term. So you're not just going to be told the word gather was used in the Biology 102 syllabus. That's not very helpful. It's going to give you the context of that term. So in this case, they're going to read scientific peer-reviewed literature, design and implement hypothesis-driven experiments, gather data, and use evidence to make a claim. So that sounds, pretty related to information literacy. As you go through, you'll notice things that aren't relevant. And that's just because it's going to pull things that are using these words that are in context of other words, but they're not necessarily related to library instruction. This one, they talk about this lab quiz combining and analyzing data, a species diversity handout, but it doesn't really seem to have information literacy components. So you will have some things pop up that you can just kind of ignore and you're like, oh, that's not really relevant. There are also some syllabi listed at the bottom here with no terms or context. Those are just ones where it did not pull anything. So anything that it looked through but didn't find anything in the minor, it will just list at the bottom kind of off by themselves, so you can ignore those. What we've done from here with this output is actually, I have worked with some grad students and staff members to go through and get rid of things that aren't relevant and pull the really relevant courses for liaisons. So what we've done is, imagine this with like 100 things listed. We've gone and we've added another tab to the Excel file and just listed the relevant courses and even gone so far as to list the instructors for those courses for the upcoming semesters, so that liaisons don't have to, do as much of the work in looking through all of these and picking out things. We still give them this information, but we also give them a really nice, clean, hey, here's the courses that look like they're going to have research components, and here's the instructors for those courses. And I'll show you what that looks like. I have one of those here. So this is from a women's and gender studies syllabus mining. So you can see we have like hundreds of courses that we mined for this, lots of things that it pulled, lots of context and lots of terms. If we go over to the liaison contact tab that we set up for the liaison, you can see that we've cleaned it up a lot and we've just added those relevant courses, as well as the fall 2022 instructors and the spring 2023 instructors, so they can really quickly and easily say like, okay, I need to reach out to whoever's teaching women's and gender studies 203 in the fall and tell them about instructional opportunities. So that's how we have used it to give to liaisons, instead of just giving them that kind of big, ugly file of information. I will just show really quickly too an example email that I sent to my faculty because of the fact that we were told not to say, I mind your syllabus. And we probably wouldn't want to say that anyway, even if they hadn't told us that. So when reaching out from syllabus mining, I just kept it really broad. I shared this template with the liaisons to use if they wanted to, but you'll see, I just introduced myself as the liaison to their department, mentioned specifically though the course they're teaching that I noticed had research components, and just saying, hey, I wanted to let you know about some services that might be helpful to you in teaching this course and teaching your students to conduct research. And then I just mentioned instruction, I mentioned custom research guides, and I mentioned research help and appointments. So that's kind of how I framed it in my outreach. Esther said this could be used to predict academic support for things like major papers and projects for tutors in addition to instruction. Definitely. So I'm going to pop back over to my presentation. Before I jump into like talking a little bit more about the things that have worked well for us and the things that are not, are there any questions about the minor itself, just before I kind of move on?
Did you say if there was a cost associated with it?
No, it is free. It's open source. Just go to the link and anybody can use it.
Awesome.
I'm totally copying that email template though,
Great.
because I think that's such a smart way to
Mhm.
say, hey, I can help you with this class.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like it's a little bit better than what I used to do, which was just the email to the whole department saying these exact same things. But for some reason, if it's coming to you and I'm mentioning your specific course, I think it makes more of a difference.
Definitely. We just send out like a pound faculty. We're here to do instruction and hope for the best, right? So this is so much more targeted. I really appreciate this.
Awesome. So we piloted this for the first time in spring 2022, and it was just me and the social sciences librarian. Shout out to Lydia, I think she's here. We were the first ones who did this, so I mined all of her subject areas. She has several, and then mine, I just have 2 subject areas. So we mined all of those and we did some outreach. I believe Lydia got a couple of instruction requests out of her outreach, which is awesome. At that time, I did not hear back from anyone I reached out to. Now I have 2 liaison areas, and they're very small. So it's not super surprising. I think I only sent like 8 emails maybe, but I didn't hear back from anyone, not even like a thanks for the information. So yeah, okay, great. Lydia said she did get a couple of follow-ups. That's great. But I personally did not hear back from anyone at that time. So I was like, okay, that stinks. But we went ahead and moved forward with it. And for fall 2022, like I said, I worked with our grad students and a staff member to mine all syllabi for all liaison subject areas. So that was a lot. There are tons and tons of disciplines at the university. Some of our liaisons have like, 5, 6, 7 areas that they liaise to. So we pulled that information for all of their areas. Unfortunately, I was on parental leave most of that semester in fall 2022. So somebody else sent out the information to the liaisons on my behalf, which was great. But I think it was kind of hit or miss whether liaisons actually use those reports to do any outreach, or, maybe they did a little bit, maybe some people were like, no, not right now, which is fine. Some of our liaisons actually have like more teaching than they want. So they were like, I'm not going to try to like get more instruction right now. Like I'm good. I'm at my limit. So that was, a little bit of a struggle. Like I can't force anyone to do anything, nor would I want to force anyone to do anything, but it is kind of a lot of work for something that's then optional for liaisons, whether or not they want to do it. I did work with our new science librarian to try to use the tool in a little bit of a different way. So she wanted to identify like the common citation styles that her disciplines were using and talking about. So we changed all of the terms to things related to citation and particular citation styles in the sciences. So that's, one way we've tried to use it in a different manner. The output wasn't great. We didn't find a lot of what we were looking for, but I can see the potential there to do things like that, where liaisons are like, I want to find this really specific thing that people are talking about. We have a librarian who's really interested in like community-based learning classes. So maybe doing something there where we mine some syllabi for, the term community-based learning. So using it in different ways is a really exciting potential that I see. I reached out to more of my courses and faculty. I was not deterred by what happened the first time I did it. I reached out to more faculty in spring 2023 when I was back from leave, and actually did get 2 instruction requests out of it. Interestingly, it was from a couple of faculty members who had utilized instruction really frequently before the pandemic, and then had kind of dropped off. So I think that was a really exciting and positive thing that I definitely see as a success, was that I was able to renew a couple of previous instruction relationships that had kind of fallen away because of the pandemic and because of, probably a variety of other things. I did also receive a couple, at least, acknowledgement emails back from people who have never used instruction, saying something along the lines of like, thanks, I'll pass this on to my students. And I also had one person, I was looking back in my email yesterday, who said, hey, like I haven't thought about this for the spring, but I'm going to get in touch in the fall about instruction. So that's really exciting. Somebody who had never done instruction before. So, I think that there are many positives coming out of it. In general, kind of my, closing thoughts on this tool. I do think that like the big sweeping mining of all liaison subject areas is not the best use of this tool, at least at my institution, because like I said, we're a huge university. We have so many liaisons covering so many subject areas that it's a lot of work. And then the other side of that are like our liaisons, like I mentioned, are really autonomous. Their focuses are different. Some people do have a really big focus on instruction. Other liaisons are focused on different areas of their work, and they're just not as interested in this work or this information, which is totally fine. It takes a lot of work, like I said, doing all of the mining, doing the pulling of relevant courses, finding the instructors. So I really don't think that that is super beneficial for us in using this tool. So moving forward, I think what we're going to do is use it kind of more in a needs-based way. Like if a liaison needs something in particular that this tool can help with, I'm really glad that I know about it and that it can help. So I have been doing some goal planning for the information literacy program. And one of our goals I have up here on the screen is about liaison instructional planning. So I have a goal to work with each subject liaison in the coming semesters to create an individual instruction plan for at least one of the disciplines they serve. And this is where I really think that the syllabus mining tool could come in handy if they want to do something like, finding citation styles within a class, if they want to like identify research intensive or research methods courses. There are lots of ways that this tool can be helpful for that work. So, like I said, I think it has the potential, this tool, to be really helpful on an individual liaison basis. With this instructional planning, I have already worked with our education liaison. She's actually our new education liaison to pull the syllabi, for the teacher prep program. That's her focus. She wants to investigate providing instruction to teacher prep students. So we've pulled syllabi to kind of look into how those students are doing research and how she might be able to support them. And then, in the coming months, working with other liaisons on their plans, we can see how the minor might be helpful in, helping them reach their goals. So I would say all in all, I think that the syllabi mining tool is a really great thing to know about and to add to your instruction program's repertoire. I will say, and I'm sure it's clear in my presentation, it hasn't changed our lives. It hasn't tripled our instruction numbers, but it certainly has made the project of finding potential new instruction relationships a lot faster and easier, rather than, trying to go through all of these different websites that talk about the different courses and whether or not they have research and their outcomes for the programs. This is just kind of like a really fast and quick way to get a lot of information pretty easily, right? So it's definitely provided us with new opportunities for instructional outreach, and we will continue, I think, using it in the future. So opening it back up to you all, I think some people in the chat were already mentioning, some cool ideas for using this, but do you have any, ideas about using this tool for your instruction program? Can you see any benefits to it? I'm just going to look back through the chats here because I think a couple people mentioned things.
I know for me, this would save me a ton of time because right now I was doing it one by one.
Yeah, that's kind of where we were at. Yeah, Esther mentioned like terms like plagiarism, academic honesty, evidence-based practice for allied health. That's great. Oh, databases that are relevant for a course. That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm also happy for anyone to talk. Yeah, Esther said, higher departments might be willing to help with the data mining if they're interested. Yeah. Oh, great, Jen. Yeah. Yeah. I mentioned that community-based learning example. And yeah, we have like lots of community-based learning courses all over different disciplines. So it can be hard to find what you're looking for. So I think that could be good with oral history as well.
Love Dester's idea about using this as a part of your SACS accreditation narrative. Like, we're about to go through accreditation again, and oh, this would seem so impressive.
Definitely. I don't know how to get back to Zoom to like, oh, here we go. Stop share. There we go. Well, thank you all so much for coming. I'm happy to answer any more questions or call it a little early. So thanks.
It was very enlightening, Amber. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm glad you are going to save me so much time.
Do you have an easy way that you're accessing syllabi?
Not really. I can access the class schedule for each semester, and that's where the syllabus are posted. So, but I have to go into each class one by one, and it's really annoying.
Yeah.
So
I'll have to look and see if there's like a central repository.
we have a syllabus repository, but faculty don't have to upload their syllabi till the end of the semester.
Yeah.
You would be really planning for the next fall if you got into this.
Yeah, I didn't mention that, but actually that is when I'm looking at syllabi, I'm looking at syllabi from previous semesters. Okay. So that is something that, if the instructor changes, if the course changes significantly because the instructor changes. So we are doing like a bit of like assumption there where we're like, well, I'm assuming that like Psych 304 is going to be similar semester to semester and going to have kind of the same outcomes. But yeah, that is something where it could be a different instructor who could totally change the course because we are looking at previous semester syllabi.
Or an adjunct who's no longer with us or whatever. So that'll be something. Now that is harder to find who's still here teaching, even at a small institution like us. So
yeah.
Have you had any professors find out that you were syllabus mining, and did they have a negative response or?
No, we have not. I mean, I would assume that probably like 99.9% of faculty don't care. I think they just want us to be careful about it as they're handing out credentials to something like the syllabus database, that like people aren't going to get upset about it. I would assume that if anybody asked me, I would be honest. If they were like, how do you know my class has research components? They're like, I looked at your syllabus, because their syllabi are supposed to be available in the learning management system. So, no, fair. I haven't had anyone get mad about it, and I bet most people would not.
Okay.
But we just don't say, we don't want to give me red flags. We don't want to get our access taken away.
Let's say hearing none, saying none. I guess we got 10-minute break before the next session.
Thank you all.
Thank you. It was great.